We have with us Mr. Sujith Kumar, the moderator for the panel discussion, AVP and HR business leader Infosys Limited, founder and managing trustee, Martram Foundation. A passionate HR professional with over 2 decades of professional experience in human resources, Sir enjoys building teams, coaching and helping individuals amplify their potential. A 6-time TEDx speaker, he enjoys professional speaking, storytelling, writing and photography. Manages an NGO called Martram Foundation, which provides full scholarship for higher education to over 2,000 students coming from economically weaker section of the society. We welcome you, sir.
Next, Mr. Kalpathi Suresh. May I request Mr. Suresh to please join us? Mr. Kalpathi Suresh is an entrepreneur by nature and is known to see the bigger picture, utilize his skill in an extensive background with well-known blue-chip corporates. An active alumnus of IIT Madras, he is nominated the Entrepreneur of the Year in 1999 and the past president of IIT Alumni Club. Currently, he is the executive director of Veranda Learning Solutions, a listed edutech company.
Next, we have Dr. Anbu Rathinavel, a life coach with life architecting as his mission. Anbu has played a breakthrough role in coaching on the design mind, engaging learning culture, mindfulness, leadership development, and transforming OD. As Chief Design Officer in Intellect Design Arena, he is currently focusing on balancing Eastern and Western philosophy to leverage design. Sir, we welcome you, sir.
I have great pleasure in introducing Mr. Sehraj Singh, Managing Director, Naspers. As a former financial services and management consulting professional, Sehraj currently develops and leads Naspers in process, policy, strategic and government initiative across the full range of areas that impact Naspers process and technology in the region. Sehraj is a BA in economics and a master in public policy from Harvard University, where he was also a teaching fellow in the Center of Public Leadership, a graduate at the Musawar Rahmani Center for Business and Government, and a visiting fellow at the Program for Financial Systems at Harvard Law School. Put your hands together to welcome Mr. Sehraj.
Good afternoon. Hello. Good afternoon. Yeah, great. I know you are coming after lunch, and somehow I have this knack of picking up post-lunch sessions. Okay, whether as an individual speaker, so I thought at least as a moderator, I'll get a better chance, but bad luck, I'm here. So apologies to my fellow panelists. It's a curse that I carry. Wherever I go, I get post-lunch session. So I know it's a little difficult after lunch. You had nice Annapurna lunch after an exciting inaugural session, especially the last 30 minutes. The students' performance was simply awesome. But this topic is going to be of very, very significantly relevant to each one of the students sitting here. And that's because of the kind of illustrious panel that we have today. I hope you paid attention to the intro. Some of the stalwarts sitting here are phenomenal achievers in their respective field. And while I actually wanted to start with some opening comments, I have a particular challenge. One of our speakers has a flight to catch. So I'm going to take the first 30 seconds and invite him to speak. Here's a quick question. For your exams, when you come for your exam, semester examination, how many of you carry your notes with you? I'm talking about physical notes. How many of you carry physical notes? And how many of you carry your mobile phone? Okay, the third category I don't have anything, which means you don't carry anything, right? So we are not really bothered. But I think it's a very significant statistic that says worldwide 60% of the students don't rely on physical notes. For example, everything for them is online. So this topic is all about blended education for all using digital technology. I don't think we can even think about education without technology in these times. And thanks to COVID, because it is the digital transformation in each of our homes started with COVID, right? Overnight, our teachers became online, they came on the online mode, and the classes were interesting, isn't it? When your teacher came on class, you also had your grandmother, father, mother, everybody sitting and watching how they were doing. Oh, this is how the maths teacher teaches classes. This is how your computer science teacher is teaching you coding and so on and so forth. But this topic is much beyond all that, right? So I'm going to invite Mr. Kalpathi Suresh, who is a pioneer in the edtech sector. And there is, if you are preparing for a competitive exam today, I don't think you will 100% be using one of his services, one of his company that provides phenomenal amount of the courses and some fantastic work that he's doing. So my first question to you, and which I'll come and sit right next to you, is what do you think, in your mind, what is blended education is all about? And what are some of the challenges that you see? If you can start with those opening comments, I'll shoot some questions to you post that, sir.
Hello. Yeah. So thanks, Sujith. So blending, as I understand, of course, the first one, which all of us, COVID has made us extremely aware, is doing it online and offline. And I think we have many people on the panel to talk more about it, but I will come at it from a couple of other angles. One of the things that we are very excited to be working on is to blend academic qualification with an industry orientation. And of course, in everything that we do today, everything is available online or offline or blended formats. Some of the challenges that I have seen, and I'll share some specific example, is when COVID came, people went online. They were forced to go online with no other option. And people thought everything is online, and online means efficient. Of course, COVID, when the offline surged and the online has seen a significant reduction in demand. I think from what statistics that we have among students that we have trained so far, what we have found is people still do online because of logistics or because of flexibility. And that portion of the people have stayed online, and that entire segment was created thanks to COVID. The other one that I wanted to mention in terms of using online and offline, I think if people are able to use the capabilities of the medium effectively, then there lies a very efficient way to do this education, which is a combination of both, not necessarily because of availability, but because it's the most efficient way to do it.
You said brilliantly that there are still people sticking to online, and that is more because of flexibility and convenience. Can you throw some light on these integrated programs, which is becoming, I think, blending two courses, which is becoming a norm? So there's a good number of students who are sitting here. Some of them might want to be entrepreneurs or job seekers. How do you see future for blending courses?
I think it's a very interesting question. And we are doing some pioneering work, hopefully, and creating the change. And I'll give specific examples. One of the programs that we expect to launch is for people who are preparing to become chartered accountants. And from my days to even to date, there are these students who go to a college, a day college or an evening college, just to get a BCom degree. But really they are focused on CA, whether to pass foundation or inter group 1, group 2. So we have come with a unique program, which is an integrated BCom, where the kids do BCom in the morning, and in the afternoon they train for CA. And we have ensured that the credits that they get for doing the CA coaching is adjusted against the BCom credits. Another program that we expect to launch is for BSc Computer Science. So the kids do in the morning what is required to earn the degree, but in the afternoon they would do something like a full stack, DevOps, AI using ChatGPT, data sciences, cloud architecting. So we are creating the academic orientation that is still very much required because of the rigor, but also combining it with industry orientation. And because of the way the industry requirements are changing so fast, one can't even expect universities to react at that speed. So the integrated programs are starting to become a norm. We are seeing that wave, and we plan to introduce it across many segments.
Thank you. I hope the students are getting the message that mixing it up, like your mix and match concept, integrating programs is the future. I have maybe two questions for you before I let you go. Online education sometimes can be very lonely and sometimes very boring as well, right? For example, you go to any of the MOOC websites, the percentage of completion of an online course is not all that high. And many times, and even in an organization like us where we do LMS programs and things like that, one of the common thing which students talk about is, look, it does not give me the classroom atmosphere. It does not give me my friends around, the peer learning is not happening, and hence it's very, very lonely. Now today we are talking about metaverse office, right? I know you are somebody who picks technology much, much faster. The first mover advantage is always with you. Are you doing anything around the meta learning space? And if that is the case, would you like to share something with the students here, sir?
I'll give two specific examples. Couple of industries in which we are working. One of them is when you go for a movie, right? So, assuming that you got a couple of your friends who are overseas, they're staying in New York, you are here, some of your friends in Bombay, and it's a first day, first show, you want all of you to go together. So here is a situation. So you could go into Sandbox or Meta, which is Facebook's metaverse. You could come to our theaters there. You would buy tickets using NFTs, and then you walk. The big difference is you actually get a seat number. So you will be L1, your friend Krishna is L2, Ram is sitting in L3. When you turn, you can actually see them sitting there. And you can actually call them saying, movie is going to start, where are you? When are you going to come? So he would actually sit next to you. And in a typical movie type of experience, you can hear people making catcalls against certain dialogues. You can whisper to your friend sitting next to you. So a metaverse used properly can really create an experience that today is not possible at all, and in a very, very effective way. Second is in education, right? So today using smart boards in classrooms to teach is starting to become norm in a smart classroom, right? A smart board typically will set you back by about 4 to 5 lakhs, right? And you can put one here, maybe you can put behind and students could turn. But imagine a classroom in the metaverse. So here is a teacher who is teaching, saying, here is how you do Java programming. And he can say, now let's look at this screen. And you got another smart board. And he can say, look up, there is another smart board. And you can look down. So you can create smart boards everywhere. So I can pause the video, explain something here, let that go on and open another smart screen. And all of it is just another instance of the same call. It's as cheap as that. So I think if metaverse is used very effectively, leveraging on the capabilities of those medium, I think it can make a very big difference in online education.
So I think it's already happening, and our best wishes. This is super exciting to see 3 smart boards or 4 smart boards and making learning absolutely exciting. I just want to have last one question to you, because it's a last student fraternity and hopefully they are going to take with multiple outcomes. As somebody in the ed sector who's pioneering with very, very different experiments, if there is 1 or 2 takeaways that you want students around this particular topic, right? Because we are looking at gig working as a concept. We are looking at plural careers. I don't think the future is all about just one employment and people will retire in this organization. We are talking about at least on an average 5 to 6 careers which people are going to change. And in that, learning is going to play a very, very significant role. What will be your message to the audience sitting here when it comes to embracing digital technology and, of course, the blended education?
So my message would be focus on your college education, because I'm seeing lots of people, there is a shift towards industry orientation and practical what is used type of training. I think to a great extent it works, but it is in college that you get your foundation right. And I am finding lots of students who are coming who have great skills in programming, but do not have the right foundation at all. So this is a one time in terms of a college education. After that, once you go into the world, a lot of education starts to be what is required by the industry. College is also the place where you make friends. So as much as possible, the college education has to be offline. This is where you make your best friends. This is where you learn life, apart from whatever subject that you're working on. Post-college, and then you are looking at skills upgrade, whichever field that you choose, that can be online. Because you are starting to work, flexibility is important. You cannot travel every time to go for a particular course. So online starts becoming an increasing part of your life. So I keep telling people in terms of online, offline usage, when you go from kindergarten all the way up, your percentage of usage of online also has to grade up. So in school, you want to be completely offline, make the best friends who are your friends for life. Same thing, enjoy your college days. This is something that you will cherish and recall. And then progressively, an online becomes an increasing part of your life.
I think it's a brilliant, sane advice, because normally I thought you will ask people to embrace more online, but I think very sane advice to stay offline as much as possible, and as you move up, pick up the online skills. I wish I could continue this discussion longer, and
I wish to.
And seriously hope your flight is delayed by 10-15 minutes, but keeping your busy schedule, I would let you go. So thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Sujith.
My dear audience, please put your hands together to Kalpathi Suresh. I think we can do a lot better. Yeah. Thank you so very much. Thank you. So I'm getting closer to Anbu, and Dr. Anbu Rathinavel and I share a very unique relationship. We have been doing this discussion for almost close to 10 plus years now. You can't call him as a corporate person nor an academia person. He is a perfect blend of both. Head and co-founder of the School of Design Thinking based in Chennai. So Anbu, I just want to ask you about your opening comments, because you work very closely with academia, with government bodies, policymakers, as well as corporates. And you've seen this phase changing a lot, right? So what, according to you, is blended education? And also, if you can touch upon some of the challenges in adopting this. While it sounds nice, but I think the challenges are human. Number of challenges are there. So what are some of the challenges that you see in this space?
Okay, thank you. When you said neither corporate nor academic, I was worried that you're going to say he's confused somewhere, right? So thank you, Sujith. Great to be here with you again. So I'll go back to the comment that you made. That was my first reality check when I was conducting a course for about 90 management students. And many of them busy with their mobiles, right? So I was walking around trying to figure out how do I tell them to stop fiddling with their mobile. I assumed that they're texting. And I went around and I was talking to one of the facilitators from the institute. They said, no, this is how they take notes now. Post-COVID, right? So that was a huge thing for me, and that's what they did. So one of the students overheard what I was telling the faculty, and he showed me, sir, I've noted down everything that you have done. I think that's probably where one of the journey starts in terms of blended. But I think
Would you like to check if they take notes like that as well? How many of you take notes on your mobile when your professors are teaching classes?
They will say mobile's not allowed, probably.
Okay, there's one hand going
One,
up.
there, okay.
1, 2. Okay, our professors themselves are taking notes. Wow, that's interesting. And how many of you still use the conventional notebook and pen?
Oh, wow.
Okay, I still see some of them are not raising hands for both the first and second, so I know the answer.
And they seem to be the ones who didn't raise for your question as well, right? The two questions. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so blended learning, at least what has been going around is not necessarily just an online module, right? It is not necessarily just the MOOC, at least the way I see it. Not necessarily I record something, put it up there, that replaces the faculty. The way I look at it is, okay, if we visualize a course, the major topics of a course as a periodic table blocks. Right? Let's say in a subject, in a thermodynamics, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I'll take that as an example. There are 5 major sections that are there under which there are subsections. So imagine you have done a periodic table equivalent of that. To me, blended learning is to pick some of those topics and pick and choose to see which one I can possibly give a video for the students to watch and come back and discuss in the class. Which one could be even an online poll? Which one could be just a WhatsApp discussion if you are into WhatsApp group? Right? It is not about, again, just the online, completely converting it online. There are so many things that the digital platform provide now, like a Jamboard in Google or a Miro platform or whatever is easily accessible for the students that brings in collaborative discussions amongst the students. Right, or even there is a tool that does an online polling quickly on the mobile, right? So that can be done instead of a quiz. I don't know how many of you have seen the SCRT book for 7th, 8th, 9th standard books, right? There are QR codes embedded in major topics. They talk about in the history, they are talking about the Colosseum and the Greek mythology. And then there is a QR code that one can quickly scan through their QR scanner in mobile and opens up a video to explain further what is in the book. To me, that would be a better definition of blended learning rather than saying all entire classroom goes online, right? And coming back to your second question of challenges, I'm going to take a bit of a different unpopular take on this. Is probably faculties not wanting to move out of the comfort zone, right? Where I have to be physically teaching this, flipping through my notes, either writing it or reading it out, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges that I feel. And the other one is also keeping in mind the learning styles of students. I'm sure some of you folks would have seen, right? One of your friends didn't show up for the class, they take your notes, right? Prepare from that and probably score better. Or the day before the exam, you sit and teach your close friend, right? Because the close friend comes and says, "Yo, enakku ella marandu pochu, tension a irukku. Okay, come, let's do a combined class. I'll teach you everything." And then that student goes on to score 3-4 points higher than you, right? You'll be wondering, okay, I taught you. That's because they have a different learning styles. We all know. Some of them want to hear and learn, right? Some of them want to just touch and feel and learn. That's why the faculties will know some of the students who really fare very well in a theory class, in the lab they face challenges and vice versa. Some of them are experts in lab and theory, you'll be wondering, is this the same person who scored the highest? Keeping that in mind when you're preparing some of those online, whatever you want to call that as a blended learning, how do you pick the ones that interest the students? Because when I was watching this phenomenal thing, outstanding cultural, of course they had a best choreographer, and I'm sure some of the students went to YouTube to see some of those micro steps, right? How do I fine tune? And I think that's where the blended learning power comes in. How do I make some of those of my classes in such a bite size that students will adopt to it?
No, I think great insights, because I had a friend in college hostel who'll ask his friend to read out things louder and he will just listen. And his ability to score high marks just by listening used to be amazing. And this QR code example that you're giving about 7th and 8th standard, where to use videos, where to use quizzes, I think great insights. I hope students, if you are carrying a notepad, are making notes, or at least understand what's your learning style and see where you can leverage this better. So I'll come to you, the second round of questions. I will move to my friend Sehraj Singh, who has traveled all the way. How long was your flight, sir?
Very short, 2 hours.
Only 2 hours?
2.5 hours, yes.
2.5 hours, okay, wonderful. So what, according to you, is blended education? Do you see any specific challenge apart from what Dr. Anbu Rathinavel called out?
Sure. I recently was talking about this a few weeks ago, right? And the person who was sitting next to me said a very interesting phrase. He said, when it comes to change, there is only one person in this world who likes change, and that's a baby with a wet diaper. Okay? Nobody else likes change other than a baby with a wet diaper. So any change that you have to bring about is going to be slow and steady and going to take time, right? So that's what I learned about, kind of hybrid education. Now, coming back to kind of like how I see education, and, I'll stake the claim that I think I've been the closest to an education institution in terms of student myself than our panelists here, having graduated from grad school about 10 years ago. I think the gradual shift to a hybrid model is really great. And I think it's the way the world should go, and it's the way that the pedagogy, academia, as well as learning should move. And why I say this is the following reason. I think professors and academicians are very well positioned to create curiosity, to create an inquisitive personality amongst all of us, to create ponder, wonder, introspection, right? To create those qualities in us. But all of us have different ways of learning. And when you have a teacher in a classroom teaching in one way, it may not be the one way that works for everyone. And I've always felt that different people, like we discussed here, have different ways of learning. Some like to hear a teacher talk, some like to read a book, some like to hear it again and again and again, right? Imagine your teacher having to say the same thing again. Some like to write it down. And I think when you move into a digital hybrid model, you democratize the access to education. And by democratize, what I mean is you allowed individuals to have different ways of accessing that same education in a way that is best for them. Recording a teacher, having a textbook, having a QR code, having external speakers, having specialists, having your fellow students from the previous years record their sessions, record their learnings, record their findings, making it available to you. And how you bring all of this together for different people in different parts of the world, in different languages, in different cultures, different backgrounds, different parts of the world, it really makes the difference. And for me, the blended education is going to be very transformative when we are able to put this together in a bite-sized, in a product-wise, for every single student. So who has the best? A teacher who creates that curiosity, who wants to make them learn, who wants to make them understand what is larger in this world, who pushes their quest for knowledge. And then the answers to that knowledge comes from a hybrid model, a digital model, media, content, QR codes, recordings, etc. That's how I look at it.
Thank you. So, Dr. Anbu, my next question is to you from what you do, right? I'm a huge fan of design thinking, and what you do is phenomenal. Design thinking is not just for problem solving and not just for prototype. I think you are taking a different step, that it is a mindset. If you can just share as to why something like design thinking is not just relevant to product companies and companies trying to solve problems, and how that can be an individual mindset for a student from a learning pedagogy perspective. I'm sure you're teaching in different premier B schools, etc. If any of this experience or case study that you can share, I think that'll be very helpful.
Okay, good. So, the way we approach design thinking is, as you said, it's a mindset. So we were looking at, can we even design the thinking of people? So what we do now is our work of design the thinking. Then comes the rest of the problem solving process. What happens is, if I take a step back, right, picking up from what Sehraj was saying here, what does it take, first of all, for the faculty to allow students to ask different types of questions, not necessarily questions directly from the subjects, right? One of the focus areas when we work on design the thinking is questioning assumptions. We have world over so many examples, from Airbnb to Netflix to Uber, right? Everybody questioned the assumption, right? Otherwise, for example, Cafe Coffee Day, right? CCD, it was all because of the assumptions. Why should somebody come and in a hurry drink coffee and go? Why can't they come and actually sit and have a chat? That was a question somebody asked. And that transformed to whatever, not only CCD, but so many things. So when we work with faculty or students, the idea is how do we get them, into that mindset of asking questions. So it is not about faculties allowing as well. It's about the students getting into this thing of asking that right question. right? The approach is when we see a problem, our mind is always trained to immediately ask for a solution. When I see a problem, what is the solution, right? Interestingly, the corporate world also carries that, right? Don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. So if we create the mindset of staying with the problem a little longer, instead of asking what is the right answer, what is the next right question for a problem, right? Otherwise, we won't be seeing, my favorite examples are always certain flyovers where the traffic was, little better before the flyover, and after the flyover it is so congested. At least we have some in Chennai like that, right? Which is basically somebody went for the immediate answer rather than the question. Coming back to
By the way, Coimbatore is building a lot of flyovers now. So.
Yeah. I will leave it for them to decide, right? Yeah. So coming back to one of the classic situations where a group of management students had gone to a hospital to study. Why is there a lot of, traffic in the OPD, right? And so they were invited to just see if they can solve some of the problems. And when they were going around looking at, a type of people they were coming in, so they didn't jump into solving the problem immediately. They took a step back and said, let me try and identify who are the different type of people are there. Then I'm going to try and figure out why they are there, what is bothering them. And then it was a patient approach, right? And finally they found out it is mostly post-operative care questions that the attenders have that they are coming back and crowding the outpatient department. And they said if we could come up with a simple solution of, for example, attenders of a cardiac patient, can we do an awareness session of 15 minutes for them, what to expect in the next 3 weeks? And when to call the doctor or nurse, or when to come to the hospital, not for every little discomfort in breathing, I'll come run to the hospital. And when they approached this way and came up with that solution, it reduced their traffic by 70% in the next month. So that's one quick example of how the mindset of looking at the problem little differently, right? That's what we approach in design thinking. Is there a different angle to the problem? Therefore, the solution can be different.
Okay, my next question is to both of you. Maybe both of you can take a stab at it. We all know digital transformation is happening, and morning we heard the Sherpa of G20 speaking about what India has achieved in the last 8 years, the number of digital transactions, the number of bank accounts that we have opened, the number of the mobile pay options that we have. So that's happening for sure. But when it comes to learning, right, we always have this notion that digital transformation is not for me. In the corporate world, we say it's for the manager or it's for my subordinate. In the academia, it's very easy. Professors, not all of them are tuned to adopting digital transformation. And the same holds good for the students also. They still think it's conventional. Now, how do you bring in that culture that this is real? And if there is any alarm bell that you want to ring, okay, I would prefer both of you to call that out because everybody says it's not for me. It's for somebody else. Have you come across scenarios like that? And especially in academia, if you have to adopt, what can industry do to bridge that gap, if we can touch upon that aspect, sir?
Okay. Interesting. I'll quote a very quick example of banking, right? Where I wanted to say digital transformation. Beautiful, right? It was really great to hear so many statistics about, and of course, we are way far ahead, especially with the UPI in a tea stall or in a vegetable vendor cart and all that, right? So again, on the other flip side, there are some challenges. So it is about either digital transformation or digitization of whatever they are doing. I look at these two as a completely opposite end of the spectrum, right? So digitization of your classroom into online is not what we are looking at, right? Bringing in digital element into your classroom is a blended. Again, why is there a slow adoption in academics? We all know. And we all thought pre-COVID that online learning is never going to happen, right? No matter how many forums, I know you had brought it up, several of the leaders sitting here also brought it up. online learning we have to adopt, and situation came and pushed us into it. And I do foresee a situation coming up again in the near future, purely from scale and reach. There are universities that has multiple campuses, right? And in a matter of time, they're going to say one professor is going to take care of their classes across these campuses, which only online is the only way, right? Or blended is the only way. One of the things, at least purely based on our experience from School of Design Thinking, having working with so many faculties, is there is this mindset of existential crisis or dilemma, right? If my course goes online, what happens to me? No, nothing wrong is going to happen to any of the faculties, even if it is ChatGPT coming in or whatever, right? The human intervention is a must. That's why we are saying it's blended learning. So the faculty intervention is still very important, and we heard from the panel speaker, as much as online is great, offline is important. So faculty presence is important, but it is just that the comfort zone, or I don't want to call it the fear, but there is this challenge of existential crisis. If I put online, then students may not even want to hear from me. That is not true. But what you choose to put online and what you still hold to yourself as a teaching model, I think that's where you're going to create a lot of impact. I know a professor in Stanford who teaches physics by taking the students to a soccer game. And now I heard he's playing the soccer live in the classroom. And after that, he is asking all of those critical questions. Okay, in a penalty shot, the kicker was here, the goalie is there, and he kicks, and how does the ball go in and curve? Let's sit and sort out the physics behind it, right? That to me is a blended learning, and that I think you as a faculty will facilitate and make it more powerful. And blended learning is to make your life much easier, frankly. So just wanted to make that point.
So the last point, would you, okay, I'll go to Sehraj, and the industry academia thing is something that you can think about, and I'll come to you. Right?
You know, when it comes to digitization and kind of the digital transformation, I look at it as three different buckets, right? You have the student, you have the faculty member, and you have companies and educational institutions that are creating pedagogy. When you look at a student, I think traditionally a student has gone into a classroom, sat there half bored, listened to a teacher talk for 7 hours, taken notes, come back, read those notes and gone to an exam and written out answers, right? Now, a digital transformation, if you go for the student, what it means is that how do you take in that information that the teacher has given to you in a way that is better for you, right? And digital tools, digitization, digital transformation, whatever you want to call it, can make that better, right? Can mean the way you record it, the way you write it, the way you receive it, the way you store it, and the way that you hear it, right? Digital transformation means that you can improve and enhance that communication from the teacher, right? Number one. Number two, I want to move to the teachers now, right? How does the teacher convey that pedagogy? How does the teacher come and provide the student that learning, right? And as my dear panelist here spoke about, a great professor of physics was probably sitting there and teaching them, S is equal to UT plus half AT square and how that happens, and Bernoulli's effect and moisture and resistance and mu and R and all of that. He'll be teaching him all of that in the soccer field in a real world experiment, right? Now that's a bit of a blended learning, right? But how do you take it to the next level? How do you make the absorption more real, more natural, something that you can relate to in your day-to-day life, right? And I think there are digital tools, digitization, which can enable that, which can make it more natural, more nuanced, more evolved, right? Whether that means media, content, real-world examples, metaverse, immersion, right? Faculty needs to be open to that, because the more real-world it is, the better one's ability to relate to it, understand it, adapt it, and also have respect for what you're learning. Many times what we are learning, we find very little value in it being prevalent or relevant for us in the real world. And the third is, I think, which is the most important now, is technology companies like Google's and Facebook's and even YouTube and even Baiju's, etc., need to create platforms, need to create systems, technologies that allow a teacher and a student to find the best middle ground, the best platform for both of them to communicate, right? Historically, we've had a teacher talking and a student writing down. Now, how do you enhance that? And I think companies also need to find ways to make that conversation, that vartalap as we call it here, right? Like make that more nuanced, more natural, better. And I think that the responsibility as well as the income will also come from companies that enhance this ability to happen. And whether it's a metaverse from Facebook, whether it's coming in with, a teacher playing football on TV and drawing it, platforms have to enable that to happen.
Thank you. Would you like to, look at because you work with different spectrums, right? What can industry do to bridge this gap? Or you think it is academia which has to solve the problem?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. I think industry will have to, definitely. Otherwise, we keep talking about industry-academic collaboration and all of that for years now. So taking a step back from the blended learning into the topic of the awareness into the corporate environment itself, I know there are logistical and administrative challenges, but both academia and industry to come together and at least have some of the faculties do a short-term internship with corporates, Sujith, right? Because that gives them a different perspective of what students are experiencing after they go to corporate. Today, I think that is missing, right? The practical experience, like Sehraj was saying, right? That is missing. And the other one is industries can come together with academia because they have the technology know-how. They have the platform, and that is something that the faculties and institutions may have challenged. I bumped into this, maybe some of the faculties already know, spoken tutorial by IIT Bombay professor, where he has for about 70 plus courses on Python, C, C++, and some mind-boggling number of students who have gone through that. 70 lakh students have accessed that course. The spoken tutorial is, where it exactly addresses what the other co-panel members, leaders here mentioned, right? And you brought up the point about loneliness in online learning. So there are voiceovers on some of the topics in programming, and then he stops and says, now you go and try this on another window. Come back and enter that answer here. So it kind of brings in that interactiveness and also gets that interest level. I think they have done it in collaboration with a couple of the corporates who are guiding it. I think that's the other place where corporate can really play a role. It cannot be because the good part of consumer for all the output of academic institution is a corporate. They have to come in much early in this.
Absolutely. So I have one last question, and I don't know if the audience, you have any questions? Just want to quickly check if audience, you have any questions for the panel. Otherwise, I want to close with one question. All right. So we spoke about some very, very fancy stuff, which is of course happening in our country. Good number of institutions are adopting it. But the reality is that our gross enrollment ratio, after a lot of effort, has moved to about 28%, okay, which means a whopping 72% still do not have access to higher education, right? So I know the obvious answer, but I just want to hear it from you. Is going digital the way forward to bridge this gap, okay, of increasing the GER? Okay. I don't know how much of our children, but these, even if I look at it, these children sitting in this hall are the privileged set of people, right? Getting access to high quality education in a premier institution like this. But of the same age group with good academics, but for want of money, somebody's working elsewhere, right? So do you think going digital is a way forward where we can bridge this digital gap?
Yeah, I think you touched upon a huge thing, especially now that we are talking about youth ambassadors. So about 2 years ago, looking at the youth engagement index from Niti Aayog, right? And some of the things when we interviewed some of the students who dropped out for the very reason, right? If only they had access to education in different means, right? It may not be completely digital, but at least digital definitely is going to help them keep in touch with education, and probably the typical good old model of distance learning where digital plus once in a while they come into a classroom to rehash that learning. But digital will definitely bridge that huge gap that we have today.
Anything that you want to add, Mr. Sehraj?
Yeah, I have a bit of a philosophical view on this, right? the future of education, the future of technology is no longer going to be the conventional way that we know it about getting a BA or a BTech or an MTech or a BSc, right? I think the world is transitioning and quite rapidly into a skills-based learning and a skills-based employment platform, something that the German kind of ecosystem has had for a while. And I think what that means is that a person can come out of class 10 or class 12, go online and learn coding, can go online and learn certain stuff on media, social media, digital media, online, and can get a job which can be quite fulfilling. And I think the world has never seen this before. And that is where I think that people who otherwise may not have access to means of coming to an educational institution, but have a tablet, right? And thanks to Android and thanks to all of these domestic manufacturing, we're able to access digital products quite reasonably priced. Data has come down, become very cheap. That has allowed another avenue for people to gain education, right? And education now, that the definition is going to change and become virtual. And I think that will help them gain economic opportunity and employment. So your numbers may not go up beyond 28, 29, right? And that's a whole different problem where you need, more infrastructure and social infrastructure and schools and, educational institutions. But I believe that the economic opportunity and economic gains and employment, those numbers that are historically, traditionally linked to graduation and academic and degrees will go up. And I think that we as practitioners need to do more to allow more content to come out so that people can get skills-based employment and access economic opportunity, putting them at a level that their peers who may go to an educational institution and graduate and may have the same livelihood. And I think that's where the world is going to go. And the next 10 years will see that quite a bit.
I think it's a very, very brilliant perspective. Thank you so very much. So I'm just going to take about 2-3 minutes to summarize this discussion before I hand it over to the next interesting panel discussion on women empowerment and entrepreneurship. You heard Mr. Suresh speak about what's happening about blending courses today. I don't think you need to do a B, computer science, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to get into an IT organization. I have representatives from companies like Zoho sitting here who hire from very, very unconventional sources, BCom with Python, 10 standard with Python, and you can just pick it up and get as good employment as an IT engineer would get. Second, the concept of meta learning, which is becoming the order of the day. I think these are terminologies which we thought is going to take at least 5-10 years to come in, but he's talking about right from movies to education, how meta is the way forward. Dr. Anbu Rathinavel brought in some brilliant insights from, it's not design thinking, he's looking at design your thinking, design the thinking, that's what he's speaking about. Calling out the big elephant in the room, why academia needs to change, why we need to adopt a digital first before going and talking to students. And Mr. Sehraj for those brilliant insights, especially the last one, I just simply loved it because ultimately it's about bringing them economic growth, I think. Now, I just want to ask you a very simple question because this summit is called Youth Ambassadors, right? So we hope that this is not an ordinary event, right? This is not an ordinary event and you folks sitting here are youth ambassadors, right? So let me ask you this simple question. How many of you carry a mobile phone? How many of you have a mobile phone? Please raise your hands. Yeah, it's a very simple question, right? And how many of you are having a phone, this is your second phone rather. You've exchanged your phone and you bought your second phone. Okay? Almost everyone, right? Most of us, we go and exchange your phone. So let me give you an example, and this is a very local example of a student from Sri Krishna College, right? So while my designation says AVP and HR of Infosys, I have another hat, which is what MC introduced. I run a foundation called Moderator Foundation, which educates about 2,000 poor children. Children from the economically weaker section get access to higher education. And in this particular college, about 100 children are getting complete sponsored education, right? So some of my students are actually sitting in this very hall. And I thought it's very apt that when I asked Mr. Anbu Rathinavel about this question about what are the challenges in digital education, one of the biggest challenges is something called a mobile phone, and even bigger a challenge is to have a good data plan, right? Many of us did not feel the pinch. Most of us have a 5G connection. We watch Netflix, Amazon, everything over this mobile phone, but I'll give you an example. I don't know whether this girl is sitting inside this hall. We don't reveal the actual name. She's a third-year engineering student of this particular institution. I'm going to call her Kalai. okay? Kalai is from a very rural village, and during the pandemic period, I have to do interviews only online, right? So I used to ask them to come on Zoom calls. I have to see them because a foundation like us can get cheated very easily by fake students, right? People who have the means but still apply for scholarship. So we do this verification, and I remember this interview. They were all in a Zoom call, the orientation program, and I was just browsing through the screen. I asked my students to switch on the video. And as I was browsing through the screen, I found one student sitting in a place, hot sun shooting up in her face, and she was sweating like anything. And I could see sculptures in the background, right? All goddess, different goddess, sculptures in the background. And this didn't look like a residence, right? So I asked her, "Enga ukandirukka? Where are you seated? Okay, this doesn't look like your house." And she said, "Sir, idu enga veedu illa sir. இது எங்கள் ஊர் எல்லையம்மன் கோயில். எங்கள் ஊரில் சிக்னல் கிடைக்காது. தெர் இஸ் நோ மொபைல் சிக்னல் இன் மை வில்லேஜ். 7 கிலோமீட்டர் நான் நடந்து வரணும். 7 கிலோமீட்டர் தாண்டி தான் இந்த கோயில் இருக்குது. இந்த கோயிலில் மட்டும்தான் சிக்னல் கிடைக்கும் சார். ஸோ நான் இங்கே தான் வந்து கிளாஸ் அட்டன் பண்ணுவேன்." அண்ட் ஐ செட், 7 கிலோமீட்டர் டெய்லி நடந்து வருவேன். ஆமாம் சார், 7 கிலோமீட்டர் நடந்து வருவேன். சரி, ஏமா வெயிலில் உட்காந்துருக்க? நிழலில் உட்காரலாமே. யூ கேன் சிட் அண்டர் அ ட்ரீ, ரைட்? வை ஆர் யூ சிட்டிங் இன் அ ஹாட் சன்? And she picked up the mobile phone and showed the entire temple. There was not a single tree. It's a new temple that they have built. And look at what this kid has done. She has negotiated with the Koil Purohit, saying, "I will come and clean the temple for you in the morning." நம்ம ஊரில் சொல்லுவாங்க, வாசல் தெளிச்சு கோலம் போட்டு அதெல்லாம் பண்ணிடுறேன். I'll clean the temple for you. Allow me to attend the class because this is the only safe place where I can sit and attend the classes. So the Koil Purohit has given her permission. She cleans the temple in the morning and sits through her classes. So be computer science, when your faculty is teaching their class, you might be sitting in the comfort of an AC room, but this kid sits in front of the temple, hot sun. And I ask her, "Why do you sit there?" How many of you have had this situation? Only one point will be there in your mobile phone, 1 or 2 points. And if you change this side, your mobile signal gets lost. She said, "This is the only place I get signal, in the northeast corner of the temple, and I don't move an inch. I just sit here and attend my full day classes," right? She's not any star from outside. She's a student of your college, under scholarship. She's studying in Sri Krishna College, right? And that's what digital can do to you. When we say online classes, when some of us take us for granted, when the teacher comes in, "Ade vadiyar dane," the same professor, right? But she doesn't move an inch. The other guy is about a guy called Albin Raj. And this guy, in the same video, I saw one more guy. You know, she was sitting under hot sun, and this boy was surrounded by leaves. It's as if he was sitting in a jungle, right? So I asked Albin. Albin is from a place called Thuthukudi. I said, "Albin, what is this very nice background you have?" And he said, "Sir, my story is very similar to Kalai. Okay, I also don't get signal. So luckily I come here. There is கிராமத்துல அரச மரம் இருக்கும். It's a huge tree. இந்த அரச மரத்துக்கிட்ட வந்துடுவேன் சார். இங்கே வந்து நான் மரத்து மேலே ஏறி உட்காந்துப்பேன் கிளாஸ் அட்டன் பண்ணுறதுக்கு. ஸோ எவ்ரிடே ஹி பிரிங்ஸ் his lunch box, gets up on the tree, okay, climbs the tree and sits and attend classes. So I'm an HR guy. So naturally we ask a lot of questions, right? So I asked him, கீழே இருக்கிற மொபைல் சிக்னல் தானே மேலேயும் இருக்கும். It's the same mobile signal, right? Why do you want to climb up the tree and attend classes? Then he showed the phone around. And he said, "Sir, when I go down, there are a lot of our villagers, our elderly people, they sit and talk, they play cards. Sometimes they make a lot of noise, and class it will be very disturbing. So nobody climbs the tree. I go up the tree, put it up on a holder, and sit and attend classes," right? This is what digital revolution is happening in this field of education. So innovation is not coming from somewhere else. Students, when there is a need, they go to any extremes to make it possible. And that's where I believe that when we are 28% in the country, and when you are 52% in the state of Tamil Nadu, right, going digital might be the way forward, right? I have a very simple request to you. When you step out of the hall, the next time when you want to exchange your mobile phone, don't put it up for an exchange. See if you can donate it to somebody. A very simple request. See if you can donate that phone to somebody. I'm sure you all shop during Amazon sale, right? From Matram Foundation, till date, I have bought 798 mobile phones. Okay, whenever there is a sale happening, one guy can buy only 4 mobile phones. So we buy mobile phones because mobile with good digital plan even if college there is a lockdown and things like that, you can continue with your classes. There's a nice saying, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. Today we can tell you, show me your phone. Those 4 apps will tell you who you are. So please use it to your advantage. Try and see if your domestic help, their child might need a mobile phone, a smartphone. After all, when you go and exchange this phone, I mean, if you buy an Apple phone, you need to take a housing loan to buy an Apple phone. But any other phone, whether it could be a Redmi or Samsung or whatever, the maximum exchange value you're going to get is about 2,000, 3,000 rupees. But trust me, if you clear your data and give it up to a poor child who can use this for a purpose, I think digital transformation can start with you as an individual. As a youth ambassador, I just want to put that thought in your head. Thank you so very much for being a wonderful audience. It was a pleasure hosting this discussion. Thank you, Mr. Anbu Rathinavel, and thank you, Mr. Sehraj Singh. It was a pleasure hosting you for this discussion. Thank you.